Welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins, and today I'm joined by Rick Sedler. You're very welcome to the show, Rick. Let's begin by asking you maybe to share a little bit about yourself and all the areas that you're involved in to our worldwide audience. So over to you, Rick.
First of all, Simon, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. So I started in the luxury magazine business back in the 80s, believe it or not. And what got me started was a path that no one would ever believe that I would wind up being in the magazine publishing business. I was a mover, had a moving company. I built lobster traps. I sold things at flea markets. I actually was in a place where I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do. And one day I talked to my moving partner. I said, you know what we do? He said, yeah, we move things. I said, no, think about this. We go and we bid on a project. They like us. They feel some trust. And they say, yes, move the entire contents of my house. I said, we're salespeople. We have a conversation, we convince them, and they do it. We don't move things and demonstrate how we can move. They just like us. I said, we're salespeople. So I'm going to go into a role where I get to sell something, maybe a service. I don't have to move an entire contents of a house. My sister-in-law, who went to school for art, creative, she was an assistant art director. She said, Rick, there's an opportunity here at this magazine. You're going to love it. You're going to love the guys that sell. You just like them. Why don't you go apply? So I applied. I looked at the magazine. I said, this is right up my alley. I love it. It's a magazine that sells exotic cars, luxury cars, and yachts and private jets. I want this job. I thought I had a shoe in. My cute sister-in-law to be was working there. So naturally, I'm going to get the job. And I started thinking about working there. Well, after my interview, he said, Rick, you seem like a nice guy, but you have no sales experience. I said, well, you know what? I believe I do. He said, no, I need closers. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll work for 2 weeks. You don't have to pay me a dime. I'll do whatever you want. I'll work for the salespeople. I'll move boxes, whatever you need me to do. And after the end of 2 weeks, give me a chance to sell. You can either tell me to leave or tell me to stay at that point. So after 2 weeks, I spent every night looking at the sales manual and reading everything I could about sales, practiced it in the mirror with my girlfriend who got tired of it. And finally, I convinced him that I should be on the phone. So I started to sell. And I wasn't very good at it, but he said, I like this kid's gusto. So he finally said, okay, I'm going to hire you. You're on commission. And it lasted 17 years. And at the end of 17 years, I was running the organization. So it's kind of a crazy pathway to get there. But if I look back, I think it's really all about believing that you can do something. I didn't think I wanted to do it. I may be good at it. I said, I'm going to do this. And because of that, I did whatever I had to do in order to be successful. After that 17-year stint, wonderful. The experience was just incredible. It was all about millionaires and leaving an impression that the magazine was all about millionaires and the lifestyle. So wherever we traveled, it was 5-star hotels, it was private jet, it was exotic cars. If we flew to Europe, a BMW gave us a car for a week. Lamborghini invited us to the factory. It was a dream job. At the end of those 17 years, the magazine was for sale, and I realized the new ownership would not allow me to be in the place where I was working for the owners directly, doing whatever I want. Just keep making money, they say. And we made a lot of it. So I was recruited to join another publication called Elite Traveler. Now, this was a step up, so at least the owners thought, in terms of dealing with wealthy people, because the only way you could read Elite Traveler was to be on a private jet. Its distribution was on the seat back of private jets. I thought, that's interesting. So I was the founding publisher. I was hired, make us a magazine, do everything you did, and create a successful publication. So I stayed there, launched the first couple of magazines, left and decided I want to start my own company. So I started RMS Media Group, used my experience at that point was over 20 years, and created a number of publications, bought some publications, started some publications, created a Lux Communications division, which is a media buying division. And so for the last 22 years, I've been running RMS Media Group and having a ball. It's a bit of a lifestyle business, but also, a dream come true. And it's just when I look back and think what I used to do and where I am today, I think of my English teacher who gave me a D and what she would say about where I am today.
Rick, it's an incredible story, and thanks so much for sharing that, because I know today, as the president and CEO and founder of the RMS Media Group, it's incredible to think that it was, look, if you just give me a start for 2 weeks, you don't have to pay me a dime. I'll do whatever you want. Maybe you'll give me a chance on the phones, not being particularly great on the phones when you first got that, but ending up running that organization, moving on to, I mean, the private jet sort of magazine. It's a very fascinating opportunity there, and then to be able to run your own media group, I suppose, and you're still producing, high end quality publishing for a particular niche. I mean, it is a niche in the industry, right? I mean, it's not
Yes.
a mass market publication for everybody on the planet. I mean, it's a particular focus sector that you're dealing with here. But you've been doing this now for what, almost 3 decades, I suppose.
Yeah, actually almost four.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. And
Yes.
what about today? Let's bring it right up to speed then. So today, you must have seen a lot of change in this area. I mean, the world goes through booms and busts and recessions and
Yeah.
technology and all that stuff. I mean, is it still fundamentally the same today that it was back then? Or has that segment, maybe these high net worth multimillionaires that you're sort of appealing to with your brand and your media group, has it changed somewhat, or is it pretty much the same fundamentals, Rick?
No, in a lot of ways, it's changed dramatically. The millionaires today are vastly different than they were, in the 80s. I started in the 80s, believe it or not. And if you were to look at, imagine a yacht pulling up next to another yacht in the 80s. And the level of sophistication, what you'd expect from a conversation from one having shouting over to the next yacht owner. They would immediately identify somebody as certainly understand why you're successful, what you've done, asking questions about their background. And today, the way that somebody would dress, the way that somebody would respond, you would never place today's multimillionaire, never imagine anyway, placing that person on that yacht next to an 80s yacht owner. They would certainly assume that they were a fraud. Where's the owner? It's such a more casual, many ways of today being able to make millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in a way that in the 80s was impossible. So it's a totally different millionaire. It's a totally different mindset and attitude. It's vastly changed in terms of the people that you reach, what their buying habits are, what they spend money on. Today is a lot more experiential in terms of what people want to spend their money on. They want to have a good time. The 80s was gold Rolex, nugget gold necklaces, fast cars. They wanted to show their wealth. And today it's more of an achiever's mindset. And that is, I don't really care, Simon, what you think I look like and what you think I do and how you think I act. I don't care. I have tons of money and I'll do whatever I want. I'll dress the way I want. I'll act the way I want. They just sort of had the freedom of, no restrictions about this, typecast type of successful person. And so the marketing's changed to reach people today, and how you reach them. And print publications have changed dramatically over the years. The media has opened up for a lot of opportunities. So now a print publication really has to involve itself in in many things beyond just print. They have to communicate in ways where people and understand really where people go to consume media. So a magazine has to produce content, place it in print, place it in a digital reading magazine, place it on social media, place it on their website, and really cover all the bases that points to a revenue source. So you have to, you ask how it changed. You really have to understand, stay on top of, and really spend a number of hours each week to really keep up with the evolution of it. Otherwise, you're gone. And when we started, it was simple. You put content, you put editorial in a magazine, and you place ads next to it. That's it. That's the whole story. And people read magazines. And sure, they listen to radio and TV, but magazines is a big part of it. And so, yeah, it's changed quite a bit. You need to stay on top of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Rick. And that sort of finger on the pulse, the culture, the change, all the different plethora of digital
Yeah,
channels that are available today, and sort of tying that all together. I'm sure it's a much more complex way of telling a story today. Um,
yeah.
but as you say as well, the sort of audience that you're talking to has changed significantly over the years, and technology plays a part in that. As you say, there's more ways that people are making more money than ever now in certain segments. And when I ask you about, I want to talk a little bit about community, if I can. I want to talk a little bit about you being around, you say, for almost 4 decades in this kind of space and this sector. There's not many people have that fortuitous position to be in this sort of area, dealing for so long in this high net worth environment. You must have built up a community. You must have received some advice along the way from people. And when I ask you that in terms of building relationships, building community, and maybe advice that you've received along the way, what springs to mind, Rick?
Well, yeah, that is absolutely true. And I was in a position where I was cold calling. My job in the beginning was to um, find people who had exotic and luxury cars, jets, yachts, and real estate that was advertised in newspapers throughout the country, throughout the world. And so I would cold call. I had a script, I had rebuttals and objections and a 200-page manual that I had to memorize. And as if it wasn't hard enough that I was in actually a sales job, rather than thinking I was in sales, I was in a sales job. I was a salesperson, and I would only make money if I sold somebody. Now, as if that's not hard enough to transition and become a salesperson to keep my job, I had to sell to millionaires and billionaires, the most difficult people that you could imagine to sell to. They had no time. They wouldn't talk on the phone. And as a 23-year-old kid, if they thought I was a 23-year-old kid trying to sell them an ad, forget about it. So I had to adjust my mindset. Um, every one of the salespeople would dress up in suit and tie. We were sitting in either a desk stuffed into a room or a cubicle, and we were in the classic telesales room. And yet I had to have this attitude that I was their equal, and I had to take the lead. You can't sell by following somebody. You can't sell somebody by praising them and admire them and being, sort of a fanboy to who you're dealing with. You have to take the role of, I'm an expert, you have a problem, I want to solve your problem, and follow me and I'll show you how to get your car sold. And that was very difficult as a 23-year-old kid, because what you wanted to do is say, wow, look at that Ferrari, that's really cool, tell me about it. Then you have to step back and you say, yes, I understand those Ferraris, yes, I've sold many of them, yes, we can help you sell yours. And so over the period of 100 cold calls a day times X number of years, I did some calculations a couple of months ago. I talked to hundreds of thousands of millionaires, celebrities, CEOs, people, that when I was a kid, they were my idol, talking to, and the interesting thing is, one day you would talk to, one of the brothers of Michael Jackson, right? And the next phone call might be a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. So you really had to adjust to and understand the type of buyer that you were dealing with, and understand how to present to that particular person and mirror them so that they respected you. So that was sort of the art of selling them. But through those conversations, once you start to get to know somebody, you can't just call somebody, read a script, and then get them to give you your credit card. This is $500 for the color ad. Now I was calling on an ad that cost them $6. So all through the telephone, I needed to convince them that this was a place to market their car and then get their credit card. Yeah, it was challenging, but I learned a lot. And ultimately what I learned was through all the different types of people, there were a number of people that I recognized in telling their story to me, that they were sort of ordinary people, similar to my background, how they became successful, the path that they took. I was beyond intrigued with that and became to realize that I too could become a millionaire, and that became my goal. A lot of people look at somebody that's super successful and say, how did they do it? I'm not that person. I couldn't do that. Maybe they got lucky. Maybe they did something that I have no idea how they did. But through my journey, I realized that there were a lot of people in the way that they communicated, in the way that they talked, that I associated with and connected with and thought, I can do that too. So I learned a lot about, their stories, their individual stories of success. And, one of the things that really worked was when talking with somebody, they don't immediately respect you. Your role is to get them talking about themselves. And a lot of people that are really successful, many times they're very private. So they don't have a lot of people that they can actually communicate with. And in terms of where I was a perfect stranger. So they'll tell the story. So Mark, tell me about how you bought this car. Tell me about you own this company. How did you start that company? So they shifted from the position of feeling like I was trying to sell them and moved into the position of telling me their story. And people love talking about their cars and they love talking about their story. And before you know it, they have a relationship. And the relationship usually works out that if you're having a good chat, they're having a good chat. It's almost never, hey, I had a good conversation. And they think, well, I didn't. You always have a good conversation. And then they sort of say, hey, kid, I think I'm going to do this for you. You make a lot of sense. You know what you're talking about in your particular area. I'm going to give it a shot. Let's do this. So really, that's what got me started in this sort of, my own personal wealth creation, my own goal and desire to become wealthy. I was immersed with millionaires all day. And the saying, if you the 5 people you hang around with, you're in the middle of those 5 people. If you hang around people that are super successful and that's all you talk about, where are you going to gravitationally be pulled? And if you hang around with 5 drug dealers, where are you going to be?
Makes a lot of sense, Rick. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, it is fascinating. And I'm so glad you expanded on that for me because, you do have an unusual position. There's not many people that have been in that for as long as you've been in. And of course, that process, that osmosis, that sort of learning from others must kick in. So thank you very much for expanding on that. And it brings me on to the next thing I want to ask you, which is obviously, we talked about when you were the founding publisher of Elite Traveler magazine, this was, I mean, the number one luxury travel magazine. And as you say, distributed specifically and exclusively on private jets, right? So you're right in that audience type. But then as sort of the person at the head of RMS Media Group, right, the president, CEO, and founder, I want to ask you a bit about roadmaps and a bit about planning and a bit about the mindset that you deploy. So do you think about the next 6 to 12 months and what are you doing in the world that you're in? Do you do it day to day, month to month, quarter to quarter? Are you a long-term planner, short-term planner, or just taking each day as it comes? How does it actually work for you? What are the mechanics of it? And what does your roadmap look like at the moment, Rick?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would probably be classified as somebody that doesn't plan as well as others might in terms of that roadmap, that detailed roadmap. I have my own version of the roadmap and what I want to accomplish. I find it sometimes difficult when you look at, where do you want to be? I've been goal driven really since, the 20s. Before that, I was an absolute mess. But when I realized the importance of, your vision board and setting a goal and achieving a goal and working towards the goal, I always have that. But this landscape is shifting so drastically, and the opportunities that pop up if you look for them and grab hold of them, is really causing today's difference between today versus 10, 20 years ago. It's hard to plan when you don't know what's going to come up a month from now and what might make sense for you to glom onto. Sometimes a publication, Luxury Pools and Outdoor Living, that was presented to me with a FedEx package with a note that said, "You seem like the perfect suitor for this publication. The owner's interested in selling." So here it was, Monday, I'm planning something, and Tuesday I have this package that I can't stop thinking about. And a couple of months later, I own it. I don't even own a pool myself. I don't know anything about cleaning. I don't know anything about designing. And yet, a month after I bought it, I was speaking at a pool builders event about luxury pools. So you have to move on your feet, but essentially the core, the essence of being able to be successful is to understand the types of advertisers that would be interested, how to sell them, and all about understanding who their customer is. The luxury pools customer, and it's a B2C book, not a B2B. There are a lot of B2B publications, which I would know nothing about, but understanding the type of person that would pay $500,000 for a pool, that resonates with the pool builder. They understand that connection. They say, aha, he knows what he's talking about, even though I know nothing about pools. And I have always been somebody that is, sort of genuine and sincere and authentic in terms of the way I communicate. So rather than faking it and saying I know everything about pools and talking pools, I would say I don't even own a pool. I don't know anything about a pool. But the important thing is you don't need me to know about pools. You need me to help you find customers, and that's where I excel.
Brilliant.
So
Yeah.
in terms of planning, I don't want to say I don't plan, but I'm always looking forward. I'm looking through the windshield, not in the rearview mirror, and find a way to stay on top of the current.
Yeah, I like that, Rick, because as you say, it's changing probably faster now than it's ever changed, right?
Absolutely.
The 80s felt fast at the time, but compared to now, it's not fast at all compared to where we're living now. And I really like what you're saying there as well. It's so, you sum it up so simply in one sense, which is I don't have a pool, but I own this business that's in this space. But what I do know is the guy or person or whoever it is on the planet who's considering spending 500,000 on a pool, what's the mindset there? What attracts them to it? And that, of course, is what makes you unique there. So look, before we run out of time, I want to ask you something else, Rick. I want to ask you about any final thoughts that maybe you've got that you want to share with us, that you've been involved in, or any sort of areas of expertise or insights you can share with our worldwide audience today before we do wrap up. And then secondly, of course, I'm going to ask you that if people want to find out more about this media publishing and world that you're involved in, where's the best place to send people to? Is there a website? Is it connecting with you on LinkedIn or something like that? How do people reach out and connect with you for these opportunities or insights?
Sure. Yes. Well, I think that even though I'm in a sort of top 1% of the world in terms of who I deal with and the publications that we present and who reads them and what my audience is, I find myself really interested in small business and helping small business from the standpoint of helping them with marketing, because even though I'm selling people, I'm actually creating, reasons, presentations include ways that they'll grow their business. And I'm really passionate about helping people with their business, which almost always leads to the sales. A lot of small business, medium-sized business people, and particularly now when they get a lot of leads through marketing digitally and through their social media, they don't really understand the best way to communicate with somebody when they get a lead, when they get a response. And so I've spent a lot of time with my team and have offered to work with folks to help them. How do I close these sales? I feel like they're slipping through my fingers. So there's really a lot of particularly today, statistically, out of 100 phone calls, you really only get either a call back or reach 10% of those people. Most of the way people communicate today is through texting, through DM, through emails, and very few phone calls. So you really have to learn, how do I communicate through what is the most popular means, the preferred means, and sound like you're having a conversation, you really care about them, rather than just saying, through text, did you want to buy this or not? And it's really the same in terms of the way that people feel. They have to feel like they are synced with you, and there is a relationship started, and you do care about things other than just selling them something. So I would say that, my advice is that there are a number of ways that you can do organic social media, but there are a lot of ways that you need to enhance that with some branding. Because if you're doing a lot of social media, but you really have no social footprint, right? You don't have social proof. No one can find you online. Sometimes magazine branding or other types of branding is the baseline that you build off of when you get that when you get that exposure, right? Who is this guy? Who is this company? I've never heard of them. So you look it up and you Google it, right? So that's my passion, and that's sort of what I've focused on, and that's where I see the need for maybe what happens after I get out of publishing. What do I want to focus on? What do I care about? What am I passionate about? So I can't believe it's been 30 minutes already. Like I told you in the beginning, sometimes I take 30 minutes to answer one question. But thank you so much for having me. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I have a website that I've just started, ricksedler.com. RMS Media Group is a company. So one is more about the company, what we do. The other is sort of my personal journey. And of course, through that website, you can reach me on all of my social media that's listed there.
Thank you, Rick. It's been wonderful to spend some time with you again today to talk about, the wonderful world of luxury media publishing that you're involved in. We've touched on digital, sales, marketing, branding, media buying, and everything in between. So thanks very much indeed for being on the show. It brings us nicely to the end of this episode of the Global Discussion. Just before we wrap up, I want to just thank everybody who's watching or listening to this episode around the world. Make sure that you follow, like, subscribe, do everything that I need you to do to help support the show. And of course, I hope that you will join me back here for more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers just like Rick. And go over and check out everything that Rick's doing over on his new website. There's a wealth of information there. So thank you, Rick. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Simon. Thanks for having me. Real pleasure.